All right, so let's talk about mastery for a second. Mastery is an extremely important concept for spirituality, for energy. Let's just leave spirituality out of it. Let's talk about energy. Mastery of energy and frequency. A lot of people want to talk to extraterrestrials, dragons, fairies, unicorns, Sasquatch, inner earth beings, ocean beings, all these different things. That's primarily what my work is, relaying their messages, working with them, activating people, doing spirit art readings to help people connect. And they always say the same thing. They want to do what I do. It takes mastery to do what I do. It takes mastery for a couple of reasons. And it doesn't just take mastery of the frequency. So I talk about frequency. Frequency, everything has a frequency, every dimensional plane, every being. I have a frequency that's different than your frequency, even though we're humans. We all live in different realities, we all have different states of existence. You have to master a frequency to truly know the beings within it and see them with ease, speak with them with ease, and this sort of thing. It's why a lot of people end up having this thing where they're like, oh, I'm working with angels. Now, I'm going to use my friend Bailey as an example, and she won't mind. So, and I'll tag you, Bailey, hopefully, if I remember. So, Bailey has angels and they come through right here, right? And then she has ancestors and they come through with like taps of the shoulder, sometimes on their head, but they come through from, like, she describes it as behind her. They come through behind her. She's in a space that I was in 20 years ago. Same thing. Angels, ancestors stepped up behind. As I grew in mastery, what happened is the frequencies shifted and changed. I needed more room for the frequencies in my field. So I started working with fairies, for example. And it was like the more I worked and mastered those frequencies, the easier it was to speak to those frequencies. So when I mastered angels, when I mastered ancestors, I was able to move on to different things. So I moved on to fairies, and I spent a lot of time working with nature in the fairy realm and meditations and going into nature and all these different things. And then other beings would come as I mastered that. I'd spend years with that, work with it, talk to the beings and embrace them, offerings, all of that. And then I got to a space where it was like, hey, I kept getting nudged that there was a gargoyle around. I don't know why this is coming through for some reason. Frederick is saying to mention him. So somebody out there might be experiencing a gargoyle, but a gargoyle frequency started coming and saying, hey, I want to work with you. And so I had an experience and then had to master the frequency of working with him. I had to come into a space of practicing that so that as I'm sitting here, I don't have to go into meditation. That's the whole point. When you master something, you don't need the tools anymore. This idea that you can only experience things in meditation or by doing retreats or certain practices and techniques and rituals, no, it's not true. That's a gatekeeping. That's a uh, 3D way of thinking so that you can continue creating money around it through, hey, you need me to do this, or you need to learn this practice to do this. No. Once you master a technique, it is part of you. It becomes you. You exist in that dimensional space and state, or at least with the frequency in your field that allows you to connect to that state. So if I want to connect to Frederick, I just think about Frederick, feel his frequency, and boom, quantumly I can talk to him. If I want to think about fairies, I bring myself down in frequency to experience fairies. Now, what do I mean when I say down? I've experienced so many frequencies that at one point my guides had me start visualizing the frequencies as a dial. So there was a dial. So straight up was angels, and more level was ancestors, and then other things were, around the dial type of thing. And I could tell kind of the different realm based on the dial and where they came from, where they existed at. What's interesting, as a side note, is I know somebody from the future who incarnates as a human who is also Arcturian right now, getting ready to incarnate. And as an Arcturian, they come in at a certain frequency that's higher up. When I feel them as a basically somebody who's living in the future, they're farther down. The frequency is farther down. It's the same being, and you can feel that it's the same being. The frequency is different because of the frequency they exist in at that time. So it's fascinating to experience that. But my point is that I had this dial and all these frequencies, and it'd be like, okay, fairies are here. And when I started working with galactics, that's when it expanded it. Like the dials, if you think of them as slices of a pie, say you had one here, one piece of pie cut into fourths. So 1, 2 type of thing. The pie started dividing more. They started squashing together. More slices, 6 slices, 8 slices, 10 slices. The more frequencies I experienced, the more dimensions, the more beings, the more realms, the more spaces, the more the pie slice just got to a point where you can't even comprehend it. You can't comprehend it, and it's like, okay, where are they at? And it's like, they're about here. Okay, they're about here, they're about there. And now I just know based on feeling, because I've mastered a lot of those frequencies. I've mastered fairy energies, galactic, angelic, ancestors, all these things. And so people want to experience these beings, and they're like, I want to do what you do. And it's the problem is it's not one frequency. I had an experience today where somebody reached out and said, hey, I was watching your video that you posted where it was hailing in Arizona. I'm in Flagstaff. Apparently, I'm realizing hail is a common thing during monsoon season. And I posted a video about hail and like, hey, uh, I left Ohio to escape the rain and the hail, but here we are. And I wasn't complaining. It was just a funny joke type of thing because I love it out here. And they go, I saw a bison while I was watching it. And I went, huh, that's weird. And I thought they meant literal. And I look and I'm like, there's a rock. And they're like, no, 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 like clairvoyantly saw a bison. And I went, oh, okay, thank you. And then I changed my frequencies because the thing is, even when we master those frequencies, we're tapped into typically only a few at a time. Our brain can't process, the human brain just can't process all of that information. If we tap in all at once, you'll go crazy. You'll essentially go crazy. That's why we have gatekeepers and beings and spirit guides that help us, tap us on the shoulder and say, hey, you need to talk to this being or that being you haven't in a while. So I typically am in all kinds of different frequencies, and it was a reminder that, oh, let me tap into the frequency of the land. And I was like, oh yeah, there is a, a buffalo spirit, a bison spirit. And they didn't know where I was at. And it's very obvious that there is. I'm not going to say because I don't like to always say where I am, but it was very obvious. And it was like, oh, I need to change frequencies. So the point is that I've mastered a lot of these frequencies and the ability to jump back and forth. If you want to connect with these beings, you don't want to jump around. A lot of people start trying, so they'll start meditations. They'll go, well, I couldn't connect with the fairies in that meditation, so I gave up and I tried the galactics and that didn't work. And then I tried the angelics and then I tried the ancestors. And then I tried this. You can't do that. It's about mastery. You have to focus on one thing. You don't master mathematics by studying it for 2 days and then going, well, it's not working for me, so I'm going to study science for 2 days, and then I'm going to study English for 2 days, and I'm going to study this. It doesn't work that way. There is truth to the 10,000 hour rule, truth to that rule. The idea that mastery comes with 10,000 hours of work. Now, it can come much quicker. The 10,000 hours, I think, is just a number that humans can use to wrap their minds around type of thing. But the idea is focus on one thing. Even if you have a couple, I always have tons of different things open, but there's typically one specifically that I'm focused on. One thing I'm trying to do, like right now, it's my eating habits, physical health type of thing while I'm doing some other stuff. Focus on one thing. You cannot create mastery and experience the fairy world if you don't master the vibration, if you don't master the galactics. So choose one, focus on it, spend time with it, learn it, embrace it, then move on to the next one. Because it's all frequencies you have to integrate. And once you know the frequencies and have them in your field, it's a piece of cake. I love you all. Grateful for each and every one of you.